The UK is home to some very, how do I say this, interesting and unique laws. But what about laws specifically around pets and animals and wildlife? Hi everyone, it's me. My name is Alanna and I'm a Canadian, but I have been living here in the UK for the last 8 years. When I saw these laws, I knew I had to share them with you guys. I couldn't believe they were true. So have a seat, get a cup, put your feet up, and without further ado, let's go. Let's start off with barking. Yes, the activity, barking. Anyone here from Lancashire or nearby or have been to? If you are caught inciting your dog to bark in Lancashire, you can face a fine of up to £5,000. Yes. So this one stood out to me because first of all, £5,000, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And number two, the concept of inciting your dog to bark is just it's a very funny concept to me. I mean, who doesn't love winding up the dog? My other question was, I wonder how this is proven. Like, does an officer or a warden or whoever, like, whoever enforces this law, do they have to see it happening? Like, do they have to see you standing in your living room at your dog, like winding up the dog, getting the dog to bark? Or maybe if a neighbor complains that you do it every week and you get a dog in the back garden and you're having a barbecue and you're constantly riling up getting the dog to bark. I don't know, but just a heads up, if you're in Lancashire, don't do it, because that's a lot of money. Next up, let's talk about hedgehog protection. So completely unrelated, I wanted a hedgehog as a pet when I was a kid in Canada. They're considered exotic pets, and my mom said no. So I cried. Now here in the UK, I did not realize hedgehogs have some legal protection. They are considered wildlife. They're endangered wildlife. I've never seen a wild hedgehog, but I just really want to. So under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, it is illegal to kill or capture wild hedgehogs. Also, it's illegal to release a captive bred hedgehog into the wild. That's also, don't do it. They're also listed under the Wild Mammals Protection Act, which prohibits cruel treatment to hedgehogs. The more you know. There is a popular myth online that I read in so many articles. People say it's illegal to own a hedgehog. That's not really the case. It's illegal to capture a wild hedgehog unless you are a professional under certain provisions, whatever. For a regular person, it's illegal to just go capture a wild hedgehog and keep it, obviously, or do cruel treatment to it, of course. But you could own a captive bred hedgehog as long as it is procured in the right way and you have the proper, like, living set up to provide a good life for it. Does that make sense? Number 3, we gotta talk about cows. Now, according to the Metropolitan Streets Act, you cannot drive cows down the road between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. without permission from the police commissioner. Any person driving or conducting cattle in contravention, that doesn't sound right, of this section shall be liable to a penalty not exceeding 10 shillings for each head of cattle so driven or conducted. I gotta be honest, not really sure what the conversion rate between a shilling and now money. This law makes sense for the time. I think this one said 1867. Of course, you don't want a huge herd of cattle in the middle of the street, busy day, rush hour traffic, and you got a bunch of cattle, fair. But imagine getting fined 10 shillings per head. And if you had like a decent sized herd, that's gotta be a lot of money. Hi, just popping in to tell you that I live stream on Twitch. I get so many messages and comments and stuff from people saying that they've watched my videos for years. First off, God bless ya. But they didn't know that I live stream on Twitch. So this is me saying, yes, I live stream on Twitch twice a week. It's free if you want to get involved in the community, join in on the live streams, twitch.tv/adventures and apps. Hope to see you there. That's all I gotta say. Come hang out, that's all. Number 4, we are talking about dogs versus cats. Now this actually started this whole video. We were talking in our Discord Unrelated, if you support me on Twitch, Patreon, or YouTube memberships, we have a chat room on Discord. This came about in the Discord and I said, there's literally no way this can be true. And here we are, it started this video. Basically, the idea is if your dog harms someone, if they bite someone, if they jump up on someone, they do something to someone, you are liable. So that injured person could claim compensation from you. They could go to the police. There could be a police investigation into you because what your dog did to someone. You are also liable if your dog attacks or injures another animal in the UK. And that seems all like fairly normal, right? Like I think that's fair. You own an animal and your animal causes harm or damage to someone, it's your fault. Fair. But what about cats? Cats have this thing called the right to roam, so they're not seen the same as dogs, and thus they cannot be held responsible like dogs. That means you as a person, as an owner, are not legally responsible if your cat is out roaming and does something to someone or does something to another animal, because these cats have the right to roam. I couldn't believe it. And the law signifies that cats cannot be held under the same standards as dogs, which is wild. But if you have a cat or a dog, or maybe both or multiples of both, that might make sense to you. Cats definitely have a different kind of personality than dogs. And totally unrelated, leave a comment down below. Are you team cat or team dog? I love all animals, I'll be honest. If you have a pet, and I come over, I'm gonna spend the whole time trying to get that pet to love me because I literally can't help myself. But if I had a choice, dogs. Dogs all day, every day. I can't wait to have a dog. Everybody asks me, you need to get a dog. We don't have a garden in this property and I want a fairly large sized dog. So we have to wait until we move. This has nothing to do with this video. But cats or dogs? Leave a comment down below. And with that last point, I want to talk about driving tests. So this also came up in our Discord when we were talking about like cats versus dogs. Dogs, you're liable, cats, you're not. And someone in the community brought up a story that they knew someone who was doing their driving test and they hit a cat, which, traumatic. That's gonna be a core memory that will stay with you for a long time. So they hit the cat and they pull over. Like, check the cat, they're obviously probably a little bit freaked out, but they pull over and it was an automatic fail for their test. Now, I couldn't find a law around this specifically, but I think it perhaps depends on where you take your driver's test, or even perhaps down to which driving instructor or examiner that you have, who may just automatically fail you because you've pulled over and they've not instructed you to do so. I'm not totally sure. However, I did read when it comes to like pulling over when you hit something, there is specifications. So you are not legally required to stop if you hit a cat. RIP to all cats out there. This video is quite dark, isn't it? The UK Road Traffic Act requires drivers to report accidents involving specific animals, not cats, but if you hit a dog, horse, cow, pig, goat, sheep, donkey, or mule, If you hit all of them in one go, then you need to probably reevaluate what you're doing with your life. Cats, however, are not included in this list, so you have no legal obligation to stop or report such an incident, which is kind of wild. I guess with cat, you get that like free to roam, right? So cats are like, yeah, I can do whatever I want and you're not liable, I can just roam. But with that, if you get hit by a car, nothing really is gonna happen. So I didn't intend for this video to be a lot about death, but here we are. Number 6, taxis versus dogs. It is illegal for a taxi in London to transport a dog with rabies. Had no idea. Can't say I've ever been in that situation. But to be honest, seems kind of fair. It seems very specific, kind of like something happened that caused this law to become a thing, because it does seem like a really specific situation, but the more you know. Let's talk about the royal household. Now, did you know it is illegal for one of your pets to mate with a pet or animal from the royal household. Now, this law dates back to before George I, and guess what? It resulted in executions. Huh? This, of course, was before the death penalty was abolished. Nowadays, you're probably more likely to get a fine, although to be completely honest, I'm not really sure what kind of pets King Charles has. Of course, this makes you think of the former queen, the late queen. How do you say that? Late queen? The corgis, right? So if you got caught that one of your pets, one of your dogs, mated with the queen's corgis, you were going to be in trouble. Next up, talking about laws and dogs, we have to talk about poop bags. Yes. That is the first time I've ever said a poop bag on YouTube. In Daventry Council, Northamptonshire, you can be fined up to, guess, £100 if you are caught walking your dog without a poop bag. I wanted to see something local. I live in Kent. I read that Canterbury Council will fine you £80, a little bit cheaper. However, the stipulation is you have to have at least 2 poop bags. I guess one's not enough, right? What if your dog, you're out for a while and your dog's like, hey, we're doing this again. You only brought 1 bag? £80. I don't know how often people are getting checked. I don't know how many times like there's like some sort of warden out there is like, empty out your pockets, let me see how many poop bags you got. But I do think it would make you second guess leaving the house without one. Number 9, let's talk about dogs in cars. So did you know you must restrain your dog in your car? Do you do that? Because I know some people who don't do that. So you have to restrain them in some sort of proper situation. So like a carrier or like a dog seat belt or something, you have to restrain them in a proper way or you can face penalties. This one actually makes sense because if you are in a crash and you've got like a fairly decent sized dog or really a dog of any size, that dog is going to become a projectile. Wow, I really didn't intend this video to be so grim. That dog becomes a projectile and you're all targets in that vehicle. So it actually makes perfect sense. However, I know loads of people who don't do this. You know, the dog just jumps in the back. Maybe they're really well behaved and they lie down on the seat or whatever, but they're not strapped in. They're not necessarily in a carrier. So I thought this one was very interesting. So just a heads up, maybe get yourself a little doggy seatbelt. Not even really sure what those look like. Number 10, we have pigs. Anybody watching, do you have a pig? The animal sort and not the human sort. Under the Town Police Clauses Act, you cannot build a pigsty in front of your house where it is visible. That's very specific. Where it is visible, it's gotta be hidden somewhere. Which honestly, fair. If my neighbor had a pigsty just out in the open in the front of the house, just like I could sit in my living room and I could look at the window with my morning coffee and I could see this pigsty, I'd probably be annoyed. I don't know how many situations in which that would be occurring, but this is a law, and if you have a pigsty, it needs to be hidden. Number 11 has to do with salmon. Ooh, fancy. The Salmon Act of 1986 makes it illegal to be suspicious while handling salmon. Yes. This one does make sense when you look at it for like a second longer, but the wording suspicious just makes me laugh. So funny. All I can picture is a guy standing beside the ocean holding a salmon and looking shifty. But the idea, of course, was aimed at poachers. So if you were caught handling salmon and you looked a bit fishy, then perhaps you might be investigated and you might be found that you're illegally poaching and all this fun stuff. But yeah, suspicious or suspiciously handling, hilarious. Very funny. Next up, number 12, if my counting has been correct. If not, don't worry about it. This one is dogs versus livestock. Now, there is a law that prohibits dogs from worrying livestock. So this would be like causing a nuisance to livestock. The wording is worrying, which is kind of cute, actually, like worrying livestock. Harassing livestock, you would be faced with fines if you were caught. Worrying stood out to me. I thought that was a funny choice of word, but yeah, you don't want your dog causing chaos to livestock. It could be a huge herd of sheep or cows or who knows what. Like, don't be annoying. But interestingly, this law applies to dogs worrying livestock, but there's no mention of cats, because cats have a right to roam, and cats apparently can do whatever they want. And honestly, they kind of act like they know that that's true. Number 13, this one's called Don't Drink and Ride. Now, I think most of us are aware that you can't drink and drive, I hope. But did you know it's also illegal to drink and ride? Yes, that's right. Ride a horse or a cow. This law also covers being in charge of. So you can't be drunk and in charge of horses or in charge of cattle on any type of like roadway, highway, carriageway, any of it. Imagine you're leaving Weatherspoons. Okay, you're a person that goes to Weatherspoons. Not me, but hey, you do you. You're leaving Weatherspoons one night, it's closing, your feet, like the bottom of your shoes are a bit sticky from the floor. Do you know what I mean? You've had 9 pints and they were all like 2 pounds. And you leave Weatherspoons and you've got your cow, perhaps a horse outside, ready to take you home. Don't do it. Number 14, we are talking about whales, sturgeons, and swans. Oh my. Now, this comes from a statute, guess what year? Did you guess 1324? So this was under the reign of Edward II, and it basically stated that a lot of sea life were property of the crown. So the original law stated that the king shall receive the wreck of the sea throughout the realm, whales and sturgeons taken in the sea or elsewhere within the realm, except in certain places privileged by the king. So this law is still in effect today. It's a little bit different. It doesn't cover just whales and sturgeons, but dolphins and porpoises. You know the word I'm trying to say. When they are captured within 3 miles of the UK. This also covers swans. So I had heard that the Queen owns all the swans. Not totally true, but it's regurgitated all over the place on the internet. But the actual wording is that all unmarked mute swans in open waters are considered property of the crown. So this law dates back, well, it's very old. But it was actually more to do with the fact that swans were a delicacy. Hadn't really thought about that before. Now, of course, it's a bit more about conservation. I don't know how many people are eating the swans, but that's what it used to be. So current day ownership marks are made by way of a small numbered leg ring, but all of the crown's birds are left unmarked. Apart from the crown, there are only 3 organizations that are allowed rights to the swans, which is kind of wild. Abbotsbury Swanery was granted the right of ownership in the 14th century, and 2 London livery companies, the Vinters and the Dyers, held similar rights since the 15th century. So the idea that the Queen, or rather now the crown, owns all the swans is not true. All of the unmarked swans, but there are very few like historical organizations that have some rights as well. Number 15, we have to talk about pet burial. Yes, when you thought this video couldn't get any darker. Did you know it is illegal to bury a pet anywhere else other than the home it lived in? So for instance, your dog dies. You go to someone else's home and bury it in their backyard? Illegal. And one of the stipulations in this law is that you have to own the home. So say you're renting a house, your dog dies, RIP, you want to bury him in the back garden. You can't. Illegal. I thought that one was pretty wild. It's not necessarily something I've ever thought about before. But I am now. I'm sure there are other ways to how do I put this lightly, dispose of animal remains, probably through your local vet and that kind of stuff. But if you are looking for a burial if you're looking for a burial situation, you gotta follow the law. It's got to be in your own home that you own, nobody else's home, and you can't rent. Number 16, we have badger baiting. Now, I have never seen a badger in real life. I'd never seen one in Canada. It hadn't really even come up into my realm of daily life. I didn't actually know if we had badgers, so I did do a quick Google. Apparently almost everybody has badgers, which I did not know. But in North America, there was really no conversation about badgers, but there is here. So under the Protection of Badgers Act, 1992, it's illegal to bait, harm, or disturb badgers or their sets. Unrelated note, I didn't know what a set was. Never heard that word before. So from my understanding, the UK has a history with badgers. Y'all have a long-standing history with badgers, but in recent years they've really sort of locked down on what you are allowed to do and not allowed to do with badgers, where before it was kind of like a free-for-all bloodbath. I thought some of the stipulations in this law were very interesting. So if you are convicted of an offense or offenses under this act, you are liable to a term of imprisonment not exceeding 6 months per offense, and or a fine not exceeding approximately £5,000. And in more horrific news, under this act, any dog used in the commission of an offense may be destroyed. So, yes. What a lighthearted, fun video. As the offender under this act, you could also be banned or like disallowed to have dogs in the future. Number 17, let's talk about squirrel rights. Now this was something that really stood out to me because as a Canadian, this is not something that we care about or do in this way. As per the Wildlife and Countryside Act, it is illegal to release a gray squirrel into the wild or allow one to escape after capture or keep one in captivity. So this is all about gray squirrels. Basically, you can't do anything with them. You can't keep them, you can't release them, you can't let them escape, none of that. Any gray squirrel caught must be humanely destroyed. Yes, this video, I've already said it, it's very grim and morbid. If you catch a gray squirrel, you have to destroy it. However, this stipulates you cannot drown it because that's inhumane and you could be prosecuted. Now, I thought this was really interesting because the gray squirrel in North America actually has a little title. They call it an ecologically essential natural forest regenerator. So because these gray squirrels will bury seeds and nuts and whatever, they can actually regrow forests in North America. So they're pretty important. They are left to their own devices. However, we do have predators. So we have predators that will eat squirrels. So everything is just kind of in balance. They're very important for forests, and we just kind of let them do their thing. However, the opposite is true in the UK. Y'all hate gray squirrels. And honestly, fair. So gray squirrels were introduced to the UK and it was an absolute disaster because they basically overrun the only other type of squirrel, which is the red squirrel, of course. And of course, squirrels don't really have a lot of natural predators here in the UK. You guys, no offense, killed a lot of those. So the squirrels just explode. So a lot of regulations around gray squirrels. And if you ever happen to catch one, you know what you gotta do. You cannot release it. You cannot keep it in captivity. You gotta get ready, destroy it. Yes, we've talked about that. I never imagined I would say destroy so many times in a video, but here we are. Who knew the UK was full of such weird and wonderful and unusual laws? Maybe you guys did. Maybe this is all common knowledge. It was not common knowledge to me. If you'd like to watch more content, which would be totally awesome, why not check out this one? I do a deep dive on Bullseye, perhaps Britain's most funny, entertaining dart show of all time. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye!